Hey, hello, welcome back to part 3 of the 7-part series of how to start up. This is a step-by-step guide to teach you the steps that you can take to conceptualize your idea, to validate your idea or project or business or expansion of your existing company, whatever it may be, but then take it from concept to implementation, to take action, to start up. So today what we're going to talk about, it's probably one of the most crucial pieces. There's a lot packed into what we're going to go through today, but it's good stuff. So I want you to lock in and get ready for this, because this is what I use with new companies, with existing companies, with large, with small. Today, what you're going to learn about is strategic leadership, which is setting the foundation for any kind of growth. You're going to need everything that's in this to create success with what you're trying to do, with your big idea, with your business, with your special projects. So let me get the presentation up and we'll dig into it. So strategic leadership, we're going to talk about how to create a plan for your future. So you've gone through the process of identifying, problem, solution, impact, looking at your market, analyzing it. We're going to take some of that information now, and we're going to dump it into how to create a plan for your future. So where I want to start, though, is, excuse me, I've been sick, the flu that's been going around, but the show must go on. So let's start with talking about what is strategic leadership. Strategic leadership is visionary thinking, decision-making, influence, motivation, adaptability, and developing others. So what does all that mean? So with that, a strategic leader, a good leader, has the ability to have visionary thinking. And so, but I want to stop right there and tell you, don't worry if you feel like you don't naturally have visionary thinking. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to develop that. So in that leads to decision-making and balancing your priorities. With that creates influence and motivation. That then leads to the opportunity for you to be adaptable to internal challenges, to external challenges, and ultimately it leads to developing others towards success. And so really, in a nutshell, what leadership is, the simple definition of leadership is the ability to guide people towards a shared vision. And so with that does take visionary thinking, decision-making, influence and motivation, all of that. And so this sets the foundation, this sets the base of what we're going to talk about today, because regardless of where you're at in your journey, whether you have an idea for a business or a special project, or you have an existing company and you want to grow, it all starts with learning how to be a strategic leader. And so that then leads to culture. So what is culture? I want to talk about culture because it's so important within any organization, even if it doesn't exist. You have to have healthy culture within your organization, or you will fail. The former chair for McKinsey and Associates, the largest consulting company in the world, during the Great Depression, was quoted as saying that many of the companies that they witnessed fail, it was not due to economy, it was due to an unhealthy culture, and they were not able to handle the difficulty or the challenges that were presented to them. Culture is everything. So what is culture? Culture, it starts with your values and beliefs. What people collectively value, what you prioritize, that then leads to your behaviors. Your values evoke your behaviors and your practices. So how you act and interact, react. That then creates your norms and expectations for anybody that you work with, or that's a part of your organization, or even that works with your organization. That includes customers. What is tolerated, what's not, and then that leads to symbols and stories. That creates the opportunity to create key narratives to tell your story. So when we link those two together, strategic leadership and culture, what that does is that helps set the tone for what we're doing. It guides our actions and behaviors. It aligns our values with our strategies. It models our desired behaviors, and it fosters adaptability. So all of this is so incredibly important, because here's the thing. Regardless of what you do, whether you decide to take action on your idea or your special project or growth of your company, or you don't, it's hard. Everything is hard, no matter what you choose. So you just have to expect that you have to create a plan for your future, but then you have to be positioned to where you can foster adaptability. And the only way that you can do that is by understanding what your culture is, what your values are, because then that's going to guide your decision making. So when we think about that, I want to talk about what we're going to do, what we're going to go through today. This is a process that I guide my clients through. I've been doing this for years. It's something I've developed over the years. And so what we're going to talk about is really three primary things. So there's three objectives today, and I'm going to take you through this like I'm taking you as a client. And so we're going to stop and I'm going to ask you to go through activities. I'm going to ask you to work through this as we go through this video. So objectives of today. Number one, I want to review and clarify mission, vision, values, dream and analyze needs and assets, and then we're going to develop and prioritize goals. So pretty simple. We're going to start with where we are today, who we are, mission, vision, values, systematic decision-making, and then where do we go from here. We're going to dream. I want you to dream. Think about the next 20 years. Review of needs and assets, identify strategic priorities, and then we'll set goals. And then I will give you some tips on how to start taking action immediately today. And so as we go through this, this is what I ask. If you are with a group, if there is more than one of you going through this, all I ask is that everybody participate actively, speak one at a time, treat everybody's idea with respect, minimize side conversations, stay focused on the topic, and then keep comments or responses to a max of 2 minutes to allow opportunities for others to participate. So disclaimers as well. Again, if you're in a group or if there's more than one of you and you're going through this process together, everyone's opinion counts. There's no right or wrong answers. Please still share your point of view, even if it disagrees or with what others have said. And we're just as interested in negative comments as positive ones. And so those are the disclaimers, those are the ground rules. So before we break in, just think about that. Again, this is if you're working with a group, if there's more than just one of you. So if you're by yourself, stay cognizant of this as well. Don't discount any of your own ideas. Every idea counts. There's no right or wrong answers to how you do this. It's just you need to do this. This is so important. You need to go through this exercise. So I want to start with mission, vision, and values. So organizations, where we see organizations fail the most is when they do not have a vision for their future, no clarity for their future. That begins to create inward focus as opposed to outward focus. People are shooting off in different directions. It's not a collective approach towards a shared vision. And so with that, to achieve success, you need to have a mission that defines you, vision for your future, values that shape your actions, strategies that zero in, and you have to have goals and action plans that guide your daily actions, weekly and monthly. And so this is the beginning part. This is the foundational piece. Even for an idea that doesn't exist, you need to create this today. This is crucial for you to continue moving forward and creating success with whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I want to start with a mission statement. A mission statement is a precise description of what you do, what your organization does, what your company does, what your product, your service, whatever it is. It just describes the why. So a couple of things. I like for it to explain why you do what you do. I like for it to be clear and inspire. If it can fit on a t-shirt, that's great. That begins to tell your story. When people ask, what do? You can tell them your mission. And if it's clear enough and it's inspirational enough, it will then lead to further conversation. It begins the storytelling process. And so each member of an organization should be able to verbally express that. So the idea here is to have clear, consistent, and strategic language. In the book Story Brand by Donald Miller, he's quoted as saying that clarity wins out over creativity these days. We're hit so much with so much stuff. We have to be direct and to the point, and a mission allows us to do that. So real quick, who do you serve? How do you serve? Where do you serve? Those are the questions you're going to answer with your mission. Simple as that. So let's look at a sample mission. Feeding America. Feeding America, their mission is to feed America's hungry through a nationwide network of member food banks and engage the country in a fight to end hunger. So who do they serve? America's hungry. How do they serve? They do it through a nationwide network of member food banks, and then they get by engaging the country in the fight to end hunger. And then where do they serve? America. They serve in America. So that's how that breaks down specifically with Feeding America. So that's a great example of who, how, and when, or where. And so think about that as you're thinking about your special project or your big idea, your business idea, whatever. Think about who do you serve, how do you serve, and where do you serve. Begin to start processing that and trying to think about what are the answers to this. This then leads to vision. A vision describes in graphic terms where you want to be. It's an image of the future that you seek to create. So an easy way to think about vision is vision depicts what the world would look like if you were able to successfully achieve your mission. So a couple of key points on that. Your vision at this point, it's not realistic. It doesn't have to be realistic, I guess. You're really trying to be inspirational here. You're really trying to think about what is it that we're trying to do. If everything worked out perfectly, 100%, what will the world look like? And so a good example of that, back to Feeding America, their mission, remember who they serve is America's hungry, how through a network, food banks, and then by engaging in the fight to end hunger, and then where in America. And so with that, their vision is a hunger-free America. Unfortunately, that's not realistic. Hunger is always going to exist, but you see where I'm getting. It's inspirational though, and if they were 100% successful in achieving their mission, they would create a hunger-free America. So this is a good example of vision and a mission. So let's talk about values, because your mission and your in your vision then establish your values. And values define how you want people to behave in your organization or in your company. The statements about you value customers and suppliers, the internal community, and then also they describe the standards held, what your expectations are. This is where you begin to set the standards of anything that you're trying to do, a big idea, special project, whatever. This is where you start to set standards of excellence, what excellence is defined in your head. And so with that, key characteristics of strong values, number one is action. They evoke action. So they'll guide, they actually help guide decision making. So a lot of times what I like to do is establish values, but then prioritize them and put them in order. So people have a step-by-step process and they understand just from the values how they're going to remain focused on either the strategies, the goals of the company, but also maintain the mission and the vision. And so a good example of that is Disney. They call them something different. I think they call them their quality standards, something like that. But anyway, their values, number one is customer safety. Number two is customer satisfaction. So a good example of how that works is anybody running a ride or doing anything. I actually witnessed this over Thanksgiving when we were at Disney World with my parents. There were a couple of rides where they had a tough time getting on and off, but the person running the ride knew that their number one priority, their number one value is keeping them safe. So they were willing to stop the ride and potentially hinder customer satisfaction in order to keep everybody safe. And so again, safety and then customer satisfaction. So that's a good example of that. But then that creates representation. They represent who you are. So no matter what you're doing, if you're with your company, if you have an idea, if you have a special project in mind, you need to understand that you're always representing it, even if it doesn't exist. You need to understand that reputation is everything. So values represent your true identity, including the stereotypes you embrace, but also what you're against. And so values tell everyone who you are through how you act and react. And so you can kind of see where I'm going here. We start with conceptualizing, what are we doing? Why do we exist? What would the world look like if we we're 100% correct or 100% successful in what we're trying to do? This begins the process of visualizing and establishing what you want to happen, what you want to manifest in your life or in your world, in your business, whatever. But nothing gets manifested without action. And that's where values come in. Values guide your action and your decision making. So they guide how you act, but also how you react as well. So this is important because, like I said, everything's hard. You have to expect that you're going to, there's going to be some level of adversity in everything that you do. Values will help you react to those in a positive way to keep momentum and keep you successful. So important. Again, this is the beginning part of this. So this is what I want to do. I want to stop now, and here's the activity. I want you, even if it's by yourself or if you're with somebody, I want you to take some time to use this framework and describe that we just described, to think about what your mission, vision, and values are. And then if you already have mission, vision, and values, this is a great time to review them and to clarify them. I think it's a healthy practice to go through and reevaluate and reassess your mission, vision, and values, because things change as well, especially with projects, companies. They evolve, and so it's a good time to reestablish those. So take some time, press pause, go back in the video and let's take some time to establish and review mission, vision, values. When you get done doing that, come back, and what we're going to do is we're going to dream. Okay, welcome back. You took some time to establish your mission, vision, and values. The next step is dreaming. And so a lot of people have trouble with this. A lot of people love this. It just depends on what your natural personality is. But again, all of these steps are so crucial in creating out. And so when I'm talking about dreaming, I'm not talking about Pollyanna, flowers in the sky, butterflies, that kind of dreaming. I'm talking about realistic dreaming. I'm talking about creating a realistic vision now. This is where we do get realistic in creating a vision for our future. So a way that I like to do that is by going through a process you may have heard of before, but I like to work through the process of developing a big, hairy, audacious goals. And so it answers your BHAGs will answer where you want to be in the future, where you are now, where you want to be. So the term BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals, that comes from Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great. And so in that, Jim Collins has 5 criteria for a good BHAG. Number 1, it's set with understanding, not bravado. Like, it's realistic. It's not pie in the sky. You're not plucking it out of the sky. It fits squarely within your vision. It needs a long time frame. It's clear, compelling, and easy to grasp, and then directly reflects the core values and purpose of the organization. And so, again, this is realistic. This is something that you want to create that aligns with your mission, your vision, and your values. You're thinking in terms of, long term, the next few years. And so with that, this is where you begin to create realistic motivation. This is where you create that shared vision that you're going to start directing everybody and everything towards as you build out your project or as you grow your existing. And so I want to take some time and I want you to discuss the big picture vision for your big idea, your special project, product, service, whatever it is. And I want you to answer the question, what do you want it to look like in the next 10 to 20 years? What is your dream? What's your BHAG? Develop some BHAGs now. Develop some big, hairy, audacious goals. Take some time. Be intentional with this. And stop the video, go back, review what I had to say, and take some time to review and establish what your BHAG is. I'll be here when you get back. Okay, I hope that you had fun dreaming and establishing your BHAG. Now's the hard part. Identifying and prioritizing your strategic issues. And so as we go through the next slides, I want you to be thinking about a few things. I want you to start establishing what your strategic issues are or your strategic priorities. So let me explain that a little bit more. What is a strategic issue? A strategic issue is anything, it's a critical challenge or an opportunity. So it can be a challenge or an opportunity that you must address or you must leverage or take hold of to achieve your mission and your long-term goal. The importance of that, with addressing strategic issues, it allows you to navigate your threats, capitalize on your opportunities. So some examples of those can be funding instability, recruitment challenges, expansion, or technological advancements. And so as we go through and think about what are strategic issues, I want you to think about these questions. You don't have to answer every question. This is just to kind of provoke some thought, but I want you to take some time and look at this, take a screenshot of this or write these down, because as we go through the next few slides, the next process of identifying needs and assets, I want you to be thinking about what's the answer to these questions. One question that's not on here that I think you could ask as well is, what are the things, now that we've dreamed, now that we've established our BHAG, what are the things that might hold us back from achieving that BHAG? And what are some things that will help us achieve that BHAG as we start identifying what the needs and assets are? So think about that, because we're going to come back around to establishing what the true strategic issues are based on our process of identifying needs and assets. And so that leads us into the next section of identifying our needs and assets. And so as we go through that, we think about anything starts with, we have to assess where we are. And I talked about this during the market analysis, and we've already started some of that, validating our idea, our product, or understanding who our customers are. But before we can plan where we want to go, we have to be honest about where we are today. So this is a systematic process. It's an ever evolving process, but it flows in this way. It starts with assessing, leading to planning, implementation. Then you achieve your results, and then you evaluate where you did good, where you did not so good, what do you need to start, what are you not doing that you might need to start, what are some things that you are doing that you might need to stop. That leads back to assessment. So with that, some assessment tools we're going to talk about today is number one, your market analysis that you did in video 2. If you didn't watch video 2, watch it. A review of progress against your current strategic plan. If you have an existing plan already, reviewing your progress towards that, but then also doing participating in a SWOT and a pestle analysis. And so let's talk about that. Number one, market analysis. As we think about what we did in part 2 of this 7-part series, analyzing the market, excuse me, I want you to think about what are some key takeaways from the analysis. What are some potential challenges, but what are some opportunities? What improvements are needed that your product, service, or big idea addresses? And then how did you answer the question in step 2 when reviewing your potential market? So what's most important and what's causing the most pain? And so be thinking about that. Think about what your key takeaways again. And again, the idea is trying to create and identify what are some strategic issues. And when I say strategic issues, I mean both challenges and opportunities that might exist as you begin thinking about taking action on developing your product. So if you have a current strategic plan, again, it's always important, it's always wise to always review your strategic plan. So when you go through a review of a strategic plan, the way that you do this is you can simply ask yourself these 3 questions. What are some key successes from the current plan? Where have we achieved successes? I think it's important to think about that. And then if you haven't celebrated those successes, do that. Pat yourself on the back. I don't think we celebrate as much as we need to, but we easily and we quickly identify where we failed, So, but where can you improve? What are some improvements needed? And then are there still some unmet goals that need to be continued? So that's a simple way to review a strategic plan, by just answering those questions. That then leads to what we're going to spend the rest of this section talking about SWOT, and this is going to lead to an activity for us, but perform a SWOT and pestle analysis. So what is a SWOT and pestle analysis? It's a way to go through a process of identifying your needs and assets. And so it starts with the SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so when we think about that, we begin asking ourselves different questions. So as we think about what our strengths are, we need to start thinking about and asking the question, what can we be the best in the world at? What makes us unique? What resources or abilities do we have? When we think about weaknesses, we need to think about where do we constantly struggle? What do others seem to do better than us? What are we lacking? This is on a personal and professional level as well. We will, here in the next slide, few slides, I'll show you how to categorically break this down as well. So opportunities, what's happening in your community or in your area or in your potential market that can benefit you? What are some forces that could assist you? But then also threats, what's happening in your community that can hinder you in your market? What are some things that could be challenging to you? That could be competitors, that could be, that could be a lot of things. And so the way that I like to begin to identify opportunity, strengths and weaknesses is to have an internal discussion. But then to do opportunities and threats, I like to do an external assessment, and we will accomplish that through pestle, which I'll explain here in a minute. So really quick for clarification, strengths and weaknesses are internal, opportunities and threats are external. So what do I mean by that? Internal are things that you have control over. External are things that you don't have control over, but are still important and still matter. So a good example of that is, say that I have a goal of losing 10 pounds. So some of my strengths are that if I put something on the calendar for myself, I'm pretty good at staying disciplined doing it. So if I can go through and carve out time to go work out, I know that that's a strength that I could leverage. However, a weakness is donuts. I love donuts, and that's not going to help me lose weight, of course, so that could be a potential weakness that I have to be aware of, because anytime I'm around a donut, I really have a hard time not eating it. So that then leads to opportunities and threats, external things. So what are some things that I don't have control over, but could offer opportunity or threats? Good example. There's a gym that is built right next door to my house. So I could easily just walk over to the gym and work out with ease of access. And so that's a good opportunity. I don't have control over it, but you see what I'm saying here. Now a threat is right next door to that gym, there's a donut shop. So that's a good example. It's a simple example, but it This drives home the point, and it's important to think about, because you need to think about internal and external as you start identifying your needs and assets, and building out, again, your taking your ideas from concept to implementation. So a way that I like to break SWOT down is I like to break it down by strengths and weaknesses first. So think about your internal strengths and weaknesses and spend some time. And I like to break this down, these 8 different categories. Organizational leadership. When you're building out any kind of project, you need to think about who's going to lead the project. What are your operations and processes looking like? What does the financial sustainability of this look like? What's going to make it sustainable? What's going to be required to get it going? Facilities. Your brick is this a brick and mortar? Are you doing it online? Even then, if you're doing an e-commerce, you can still view that as a facility, your website, things like that, your products and services, human resource, IT, and then marketing and communication. And so these are the 8 categories I like to break down when we start thinking about what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses. And as we think about what our opportunities and threats are, I like to break it down by doing a PESTEL analysis. PESTEL stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. So I like to break down and start thinking about what are things going, again, these are external things that we don't really necessarily have control over, but that really can affect us positively or negatively. So again, breaking it down, creating some kind of a framework to break down and give you some perspective. And so as you go through a SWOT and PESTEL analysis, take some time to go through each one of those categories and just think about, what are some strengths that might be able to be leveraged? There's some weaknesses that can exist, but then also externally, politically, economically, under these 6 categories, what are some potential opportunities? What are some threats? So again, we're doing activities here. I want you to take some time, and I want you to be intentional. And I want you to take yourself through SWOT and a PESTEL analysis exercise, break it down categorically by the categories provided. So go back, look at that, and then match your findings from all the analyses that you have or from the SWOT with everything that you have. And from that will bring us back around to identifying and prioritizing strategic issues. So stop right now, stop the video, take some time, and we will come back and go through and identify our strategic priorities and issues. Okay, now that you've gone through a SWOT and PESTEL analysis, it's coming back around, swinging back around to through the process of identifying and prioritizing strategic issues. And so again, take some time to review your findings and answer the following questions. What are the issues that you discovered through those analyses that you went through? How does it relate to your vision and mission? What are the consequences of failing to address? What makes it a priority? And then what are the benefits of addressing the strategic issues? And so take some time right now. Again, stop the video and be intentional and try to answer these questions, because that's going to lead to the next part and kind of the wrap up part of the planning process, which is the next 1 to 3 years. So take some time real quick, pause the video, and come back when you get done answering that. So, okay, now that you have done that part, now that you've identified your strategic priorities, what you've identified is what are the things that we're going to leverage to achieve our BHAG? What are some things that might be getting in our way that we need to be cognizant of that could hold us back from achieving our BHAG? That's going to then lead into, over the next 1 to 3 years, what are some things that we can leverage, and what are some things that we need to overcome to make sure that we're on that trajectory, to know that in 1 year from now, in 3 years from now, we have made the progress we need to achieve that long-term BHAG that we had set, that vision that we had set. This is where we work back to present day. And as you can see, my process, the way I like to do is I like to think out long, I like to think out big, and I like to reel it back in internally to more present day to then evoke action. And so we're going to go through the process of how to develop your goals for the next 1 to 3 years. So strategic goals, they're used by using the following criteria. They directly address with the most impact your needs. They leverage your current assets, they align with your mission and vision, provide the most prospect of getting you to your BHAG, and then they align with your strategic priorities. So, with that being said, I think fewer is better. Simpler is better. We live in a complex world, but we do not need to be complex when we're thinking about action that we need to take. Because if we do get too complex, if we do create too many goals, it bogs us down, it becomes intimidating, and then that's where most plans fail, is in the implementation phase, because you're so overwhelmed with it all. So 5 or fewer goals is sufficient. And so the activity for this is, I want you to take some time, and using all the information that you've created, your market analysis, your BHAG, your strategic priorities, your SWOT, your PESTLE, everything else, I want you to think about leverage. What are some needs that we have, challenges that we need to overcome, and how does that create, what does that look like for us over the next 1 to 3 years? What are some goals that we want to set for the next 1 to 3 years? So prioritize these and determine what your top 1 to 3 goals are. And so again, this is about being intentional. This is taking action. This does not cost you anything but your time, but the rewards of this, the return on investment, are exponential. So again, take some time to think about this. What are your goals going to be for the next 1 to 3 years that are going to put you on that trajectory to achieve your BHAG? Stop the video now, go back, review, and take some time to work through this. I'll be here when we get back. Okay, you've gone through the process of establishing what your next 1 to 3 years are going to look like, what you're going to be doing, what you're going to achieve to make sure that you are on that trajectory again to achieve your long-term vision. This now leads to action. We're going to move. We're going to work our way back even more. And so as we think about what action looks like, we want to look at, based on where we've determined where we want to be the next 1 to 3 years. Now we want to answer the question, what can we start doing tomorrow to get us one step closer to achieving our overall vision? And so, again, we're breaking everything down even more into present day. And so a way that I do like to break this down, as you go through and answer this question, I want you to think about, what are your objectives? And so for each goal, here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to establish no more than 3 objectives for each goal. You don't have to establish 3. It could just be 1. But think about, what is my objective here to achieve the goal? So a good example of that is, maybe you have a goal over the next 1 year, over the next 12 months, to establish your idea and launch your idea. And so with that, how do we break that down? And we start thinking about, okay, so over the next 12 months, this is what we want to do. We need to start aligning what our objectives are. So a good objective in that is, we may have to raise money to achieve that. And so that may be your objective. First objective there under that goal is fundraising. We need to raise $1 million. I don't know, whatever it is. But you can see how an objective attaches to a goal. The next objective is, we have to build the team that we need to achieve this goal over the next year. Those could be 2 objectives that could line under the goal of developing your project and launching it within the next 12 months. And so underneath each of those objectives, though, you'll have strategies associated with that. Strategies are more action points. And so strategies are where you start at lining out different activities, again, breaking down even more. So if your objective is to raise money, then maybe what your first strategy might be is to create a business plan. Go through this 7-step process and you'll create a business plan. You can create it on your own, or you can hire me and I'll do it for you. Just a little plug. But objectives lead to strategies, and then that leads to your metrics, your outputs and your outcomes. So I like to think about metrics in 2 ways, outputs and outcomes. What is an output? What is an outcome? An output is an action that you take. An output is the number of people who you share your business plan with, who could be potential investors. The number of people who you have meetings with, that's an output. The outcome is how much money you raise from that. The actual outcome, the actual, what was created to move the needle towards achieving your goal. with all of these, as you think about your objectives, your strategies, your outputs, and your outcomes, you always need to assign accountability. Now, if you're by yourself, that's easy. It's all on you. No pressure. But if you have a team, you need to assign accountability. And so for every strategy that you have. And so when you think about what your strategies are, you need to assign primary accountability in it. That always, I like for it to be one person. I like for there to be one leader that is focused on that strategy, that then makes it clear who's in charge on that specific strategy, and who's moving it forward, and who's spearheading and championing the effort. But then you could also have secondary accountability as well. But you need to establish accountability for every strategy that you develop. And then that's going to lead to effective achievement of your outputs and your outcomes. And so a good way to break down and build action and start developing habits and daily action is to break this down in 30, 60, and 90-day chunks. So this is a quick and easy way to develop good action plan. And so this is really developing your strategies, the actions that you're going to take. So again, we want to develop and launch our project. We know one of our objectives is we need to raise $1 million. And so we start asking ourselves, what strategies do we need to deploy? The way that you can start answering that question or developing those strategies is thinking about, what do we need to do the next 30 days? What outputs need to happen in the next 30 days? What outcomes need to happen in the next 30 days? What about the next 60 days? What about the next 90 days? Because in the next 90 days, you're a quarter through already that 12 months. And so what do you need to achieve? What are the outputs and outcomes that you need to achieve, again, to make sure that you're on that trajectory to launch or to achieve that goal? In our example, launch your product or your service or your special project. And so think about your actions. So the next 30 days, what do I need to do? The next 60 days, the next 90 days. And what I like to, in some of my leadership and personal development stuff, I call it the 30-day 3-step. I like for there to be simple approaches to everything. And so the 30-day 3-step is, what 3 steps can I take, putting one foot in front of the other in the next 30 days to, again, make sure that I'm maintaining progress, maintaining momentum. And so in our example, we have an objective to raise money that attaches to our 1-year goal of launching our product. With that, to raise money, we know our initial strategy is going to be developing a business plan that we can then share with people and start raising those funds, people meaning banks or investors. So with that, over the next 30 days, we know that we want to draft out and finalize that business plan. So that's one step that we're going to take the next 30 days. The next 60 days, I mean, that's really our output and our outcome at that point. We've drafted out, and we've developed a business plan. Over the next 60 days, we want to make sure that we have shared that business plan with 10 people, 20 people who could be potential investors. That's a key output. The outcome in that is we then validate who they no longer become potential investors, but into interested investors who have capacity and have interest. And then over the next 90 days, we can set goals, we can set outputs and outcomes to have additional meetings with the validated investors. And then from that, we close and we get commitments from those investors of X amount of dollars, whatever. That's an example of 30, 60, 90 days. That's how you create outputs and outcomes. And that's how you start taking action. And so with that concludes today what we have. I know that's a lot of stuff that I just went through, but this is so crucial. This is a good activity to go through. And if you don't do, anything at all, at least think about the very first part, mission, vision, and values. And then, go through, think about what can you be doing? What 3 steps can you take the next 30 days to get yourself closer, to make sure that you're not here next year regretting that you never did take action on your big idea or your potential project or the expansion of your business. So I hope you enjoy this. This will guide you through the process of building dreams in your life, building what you want to achieve. And so again, this is I guess, a plug, but I do this with people all the time. Sometimes it's good to have an unbiased third party perspective in this. So if this is something that you would like for me to facilitate with you and your team or you individually, you know where to find me. And so reach out, and I'd be glad to help. So thanks. We'll be back next week to talk about developing your financial overview, your pro formas, and how to build those out. Now that we know where we're going, we know how much it's going to potentially cost. We need to break that down and build out what that looks like as far as needs today, but then also what we anticipate for the future. So we'll be back next week. Be ready for that, because that's going to be another just action-packed, fun-filled time. So thanks, and go out and take some action today.